Amara walked quickly down the lonely street, her heart pounding with each step. She didn't belong in this rough part of the city. She was painfully aware of that fact. But taking this route would cut 20 minutes off her journey home, and after working a grueling double shift at the restaurant, those minutes were precious. Then she heard it. A sharp gunshot echoing through the night, followed by harsh voices barking commands in rapid Korean. Her curiosity got the better of her common sense. She turned her head toward the sound. A group of men formed a tight circle in the narrow alley. In the center, one man knelt bleeding, while another stood over him with absolute authority. Min Jae. Even from a distance, his presence was commanding. His tailored black suit hugged his frame perfectly, and his dark eyes were completely devoid of compassion. This was a man whose very existence could silence a room with fear. Amara's breath hitched, her pulse quickened. This wasn't just any ordinary man. He radiated danger. Before she could retreat, his piercing gaze found hers. Those merciless eyes locked onto her face, unblinking and penetrating. She stood frozen as terror gripped her chest. Her heartbeat thundered so loudly, she was certain they could all hear it. "Seize her," Min Jae commanded in English, his voice carrying the weight of a death warrant. Two of his men rushed forward. Amara gasped and stumbled backward, but they moved with practiced speed. Rough hands clamped around her arms, hauling her into the shadowy alley. "No, please, let me go!" Her voice cracked with fear, but she struggled against their iron grip. Min Jae approached slowly, his expensive shoes clicking against the damp concrete. His expression remained unreadable as he studied her face. "Wrong place, wrong time," he murmured, his English perfect, but laced with ice-cold menace. Amara's legs nearly gave out beneath her. He was going to end her life. She shook her head frantically. "I didn't witness anything. I swear it, please, just let me leave." His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, but far more sinister. "You believe I can simply allow you to walk away? After what your eyes have seen?" Tears threatened to spill, but something deep within her refused to crumble completely. Instead, she raised her chin, her voice shaking but defiant. "If you're planning to kill me, then do it with your own hands." Amara had attempted to end her own life multiple times before. Perhaps this was how fate had decided to claim her. She was a woman drowning in depression, with no family, no friends, just a minimum wage job that couldn't even scratch the surface of her mounting debts. The alley fell into complete silence. Even his men froze, shocked by her boldness. Min Jae's expression hardened. He stepped so close, she could feel the chill radiating from his breath. His fingers brushed her jaw, tilting her face upward. "Fearless," he whispered, almost to himself, "or incredibly foolish." His touch lingered longer than necessary before he pulled away. "Take her," he ordered, "but keep her breathing. For now." Amara's stomach twisted as the men dragged her toward a sleek black vehicle waiting at the alley's mouth. Her old life had just ended, and something terrifying was about to begin. When the blindfold was removed, Amara squinted against the harsh lighting. The air was thick with the scent of leather, cigarette smoke, and something metallic that made her skin crawl. She found herself in an opulent yet cold room, complete with marble flooring and glass walls, but utterly devoid of warmth. A gilded prison. Her wrists were restrained, but her eyes blazed with fury. Min Jae leaned casually against an ornate table, his black shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. He appeared calm, almost bored, but the tension in the room was electric, coiled and ready to strike. "You should be dead by now," he said in his deep, measured tone. "You witnessed something forbidden. Do you comprehend what that means?" Amara swallowed hard, her throat parched. "That my life is in danger," she replied. He raised an eyebrow. "In danger?" A low, humorless chuckle escaped him. "No, Amara. It means your future no longer exists." Her heart skipped. He knew her name. How was that possible? She tried to mask her terror with defiance. "Then why am I still breathing? If you want me dead, stop wasting time and do it." For the first time, Min Jae's composure faltered slightly. Her courage cut through the silence like shattered glass. Most people begged, wept, tried to bargain, but not her. She stared death in the face and dared it to come closer. He moved toward her with deliberate slowness. The sound of his footsteps echoed ominously in the room. "Do you think bravery will save you?" His voice dropped to a whisper, deadly and intimate. "Do you think I won't squeeze the trigger just because you refuse to plead?" Amara's pulse raced, but she forced her chin higher. "If I'm going to die, I'd rather do it with my dignity intact." A dangerous silence filled the space. Min Jae's men shifted uncomfortably, waiting for the order, but instead of reaching for his weapon, Min Jae leaned in close, his face inches from hers. His dark eyes searched her as if trying to see into her very soul. "I can see you're strong," he murmured. Amara's lips trembled, but she whispered back, "Because I have nothing left to lose." Something flickered in Min Jae's eyes. Anger, curiosity, perhaps both. He straightened, his jaw tight. Then he turned to his men. "Release her bonds." They hesitated, clearly shocked. "Boss, do it," he snapped. The ropes fell away from her wrists. Amara rubbed the raw skin, glaring at him defiantly. "You're not free," Min Jae said, his voice cold again. "From this moment forward, you belong to me. You breathe because I permit it. You eat because I decide it. Try to escape, and I'll personally end you." Amara's chest rose and fell rapidly, anger and fear colliding inside her. But instead of cowering, she whispered, almost to herself, "I will never belong to you." Min Jae froze. His men exchanged glances, waiting for the explosion of violence. But instead, Min Jae smiled. It wasn't kind, it was sharp, dangerous, but it was definitely a smile. "You're going to be very interesting." Amara's stomach clenched. She wasn't just a prisoner anymore. She was a challenge, and the most feared man in Seoul had just decided to keep her. The mansion was eerily quiet, but Amara's heart was anything but peaceful. It pounded in her chest as she paced the luxurious room Min Jae had confined her to. She hadn't eaten in over 24 hours, maybe longer. She had lost track. But hunger wasn't her greatest fear. It was him. The door creaked open. Min Jae stepped inside, his black coat draped over his shoulders like darkness itself. Two guards flanked the doorway, but he raised a hand, dismissing them. His razor-sharp eyes never left her face. "Still alive," he said flatly. "I expected you to shatter by now." Amara stood tall, though her legs trembled beneath her. "If you're waiting for me to beg, you'll be waiting forever." A dangerous smirk tugged at his lips. "Begging is simple. I want submission." He moved closer, and she caught the faint scent of smoke and expensive cologne, the kind of scent that lingered long after he departed. Then he placed something heavy on the table between them. A pistol. Amara's blood turned to ice. Min Jae leaned against the table, his eyes glinting with cruel amusement. "You want freedom? Then earn it. Pick up the gun." Her hands shook as she stared at the weapon. "What do you mean?" "Prove your value," he said calmly. "Pull the trigger. Kill or be killed." The weight of his words crushed the air from her lungs. "You're insane." "No," he corrected, his tone icy. "I'm realistic. In my world, weakness equals death. Show me what you're made of, Amara." Her throat tightened. She could feel his gaze burning into her as her fingers hovered near the gun. If she touched it, she'd lose a piece of her soul. If she didn't, she might lose her life. Finally, she pushed the weapon back toward him. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded like a war drum. "I won't kill to prove myself. And if that makes me weak, then so be it." The room went silent. Min Jae stared at her for a long, unbearable moment. His jaw flexed. His fingers brushed the gun, then slowly slid it off the table. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever encountered," his voice dropped lower, "or the most foolish." Amara swallowed hard. "Maybe I'm both." To her surprise, Min Jae laughed, low, rough, almost reluctant, a sound that startled even himself. For the first time, his mask cracked. He wasn't just the cold, merciless crime boss. He was a man unsettled by a woman he couldn't control. But his eyes hardened again as he leaned close to her ear. "Remember this, Amara. You live only because I allow it. Don't mistake that for mercy." Her pulse raced, but her words came out calm. "And don't mistake my silence for fear." The night was restless. Rain hammered against the mansion windows as thunder rolled overhead. Amara sat curled on the edge of the bed, staring at the locked door. Every shadow seemed alive. Every creak of the walls reminded her she was still a captive. Then the door burst open. Not Min Jae. Two of his men stormed in, their faces twisted with cruel intent, their intentions far darker. "The boss won't miss you," one sneered, stepping closer. "A beautiful thing like you. Why waste you on death when you could serve us? My friend and I are extremely aroused tonight. Do you prefer we take turns with you, or do you enjoy group activities, sweetheart?" The two men moved closer, unfastening their belts. Amara's blood ran cold. She scrambled back, pressing herself against the wall. "Stay away from me." The men laughed, advancing, but before they could touch her, a gunshot tore through the room. The sound was deafening, the wall beside one man's head exploding into splinters. Min Jae stood in the doorway, gun smoking in his hand, his face carved with pure rage. "Touch her!" His voice was low, lethal, "and your blood will paint these floors before sunrise." The men froze, trembling. They had seen Min Jae angry before, but never like this. "Get out," he growled. They fled without a word. The silence that followed was thick. Min Jae lowered his gun, his chest heaving. His eyes shifted to Amara. She was shaking, tears threatening but not falling. Slowly she whispered, "You protected me." Min Jae's jaw tightened. "Don't read meaning into it." Amara's brows furrowed. "Then why?" "Because you're mine," he snapped, his voice echoing off the walls. "No one touches what belongs to me." The words hung heavy in the air. Possession, power, claim. Amara's lips trembled. "I don't belong to you, Min Jae. I never will." Her defiance should have enraged him. Instead, his chest ached. He stepped closer, lowering the gun, his voice rougher now. "Then why can't I let you go?" The storm outside raged, but inside, the silence was deafening. His eyes softened for the briefest second, a glimpse of the man buried beneath the monster. Amara saw it, and it terrified her more than his gun ever could. Because if Min Jae wasn't heartless, then she wasn't safe from him. Not her body, not her heart. The sun was barely up when Min Jae stormed into the meeting hall, his temper boiling. His men stayed silent, heads bowed, knowing better than to test his mood. "Coward," he muttered in Korean, slamming his phone down. "The deal is tomorrow. And now my African partner," he spat the word like venom, "decides she cannot make it." The room fell into uneasy silence. Min Jae's empire depended on this project in the States. The buyers wanted authenticity, wanted someone who could represent Africa beside him, someone they could trust. Without it, the deal would crumble. One of his lieutenants cleared his throat. "Boss, you already have a black African woman under this roof. You can use Amara." The air grew heavy. All eyes shifted to him. Min Jae's jaw clenched. "No, she's useless for business. She's a liability." But the man persisted carefully. "She is African. She is a woman. And right now, she is your only option." Min Jae's hands tightened into fists. His pride roared to reject it. But logic was cruel, and logic was right. Hours later, the decision was made. Amara was dragged into the training room, her wrists no longer bound, but her freedom still shackled by his will. She glared at Min Jae, who stood waiting, dressed in black, a pistol in his hand. "What is this?" she demanded. "You're coming with me to America," he said flatly. "And if you embarrass me, you die." Her breath hitched. "America? Why me?" "Because I said so," he growled. "And because I don't have a choice." He tossed the pistol onto the floor at her feet. The cold metal clattered against the tiles. "Pick it up." Amara froze. "No." Min Jae's eyes darkened. In one swift move, he grabbed her wrist, forcing the gun into her trembling hand. His grip was firm, his voice sharp against her ear. "Pick it up." The weight of the weapon was heavier than she imagined, her palms slick with sweat. "Now aim," Min Jae commanded, moving behind her. His hands adjusted her stance, one steadying hers, the other pressing against her back. His breath brushed her neck, sending a shiver down her spine. "Breathe. Focus. Again." His tone was low, controlled. Every word a demand. For hours he drilled her. Guns, knives, even hand-to-hand combat. Every mistake earned his wrath. Every improvement his rare, silent approval. Amara's body ached, but her spirit didn't break. Later, without a word, he dragged her out of the mansion. His men followed as sleek cars carried them into the heart of Seoul. They stopped at an exclusive boutique, Rows of glittering dresses and tailored suits lined the room. Amara stared in shock. What is this? Min Jae's eyes swept over her simple clothes, unimpressed. You can't walk beside me looking like that. If you're going to represent me, you'll look the part. Her lips parted, anger flashing. So now I'm your dress-up doll? His gaze locked on hers, sharp and dangerous. No, you're my weapon, and weapons must shine before they strike. Hours later, Amara stood in front of the mirror in a sleek black gown, her figure transformed, her beauty undeniable. Min Jae's eyes lingered on her longer than necessary, like an unimpressed lover. This was no longer just survival. She was becoming a part of his world, and he wasn't sure if that terrified him or thrilled him. The grand ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, the air filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses. Foreign investors from every corner of the world circled Min Jae, offering handshakes and praises. But tonight, it wasn't just Min Jae they noticed. It was her. Amara stood at his side, dressed in the gown he had chosen, her hair cascading over her shoulders like a crown. She carried herself with quiet grace, her eyes sharp, but her smile warm. Impressive, one investor murmured. Beautiful and poised. Another chimed in, she's more captivating than you described, Min Jae. You're fortunate to have such a unique-looking partner. Min Jae stiffened at the words, but before he could respond, the wealthiest among them, a tall American in a tailored suit, stepped forward. His smile was too charming, his gaze too fixed on Amara. Enchanting, the American said smoothly. He extended his hand to her. Would you do me the honor of joining me for dinner tomorrow? Just the two of us. Amara blinked in surprise, lips parting. But before she could answer, Min Jae's hand clamped around hers, firm and possessive. No, his voice was ice, sharp enough to slice through the music. She's not available. The American chuckled, raising his hands in mock surrender. I didn't realize she already belonged to someone. She doesn't, Amara interjected quickly, but Min Jae's glare silenced her. Without another word, Min Jae pulled her away from the crowd, his grip unyielding as he dragged her out of the hall. The cool night air hit her as they stepped outside. She jerked her hand free, her voice rising. What is wrong with you? Min Jae's jaw tightened. Why were you smiling at him like that? Her eyes widened in disbelief. Smiling? I was being polite. You think men like him see politeness? Number. They see weakness. They see opportunity. And you? He broke off, his fists clenching at his sides. Amara crossed her arms, her defiance burning. You don't own me, Min Jae. Who I smile at, who I talk to, is none of your business. His chest heaved, his eyes storming. He wanted to argue, but movement nearby caught his attention. A group of men passed by, their gazes shamelessly raking over Amara's figure. One of them even whistled under his breath. Damn, that woman is stunning. Min Jae's blood boiled. He stepped forward, his glare silencing them instantly, then turned back to Amara. Get in the car. Now. Later that night, Min Jae's men gathered at an exclusive lounge to celebrate the successful contract. The music was sultry, the lights low, the atmosphere alive with indulgence. Amara, still stung by Min Jae's possessiveness, decided to play her own game. As the music shifted into a slow, heavy rhythm, she stepped onto the dance floor. Her hips swayed, her movements fluid, magnetic. Every eye in the room turned to her, including Min Jae's. His glass froze halfway to his lips. Amara's eyes locked on his as she danced, deliberately slow, deliberately tempting. A playful smile tugged at her lips. She moved closer, her body swaying with the beat, her dress clinging in all the right places. Finally, she reached him. Without a word, she took his hand and pulled him onto the floor. Min Jae resisted at first, his pride screaming against it. But when her body brushed against his resolve faltered. His arm instinctively wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. The music throbbed between them, their eyes locked. Amara tilted her head, her voice a soft whisper against his ear. Is this what bothers you, Min Jae? When I smile? When other men look at me? His grip tightened, his jaw flexing. Stop playing games. But his heart betrayed him, pounding louder than the bass. Because in that moment, with her pressed against him, Min Jae wasn't thinking about business or power or control. He was thinking about how dangerously her seductive eyes were working on him. Her body was pressed against him, her movements fluid, hypnotic. Every sway of her hips dragged him deeper into a fire he wasn't supposed to feel. His hand lingered at her waist, pulling her closer. His eyes searched hers. Dark, intense, almost desperate. The world faded. The men, the music, the lights. None of it existed to him anymore. Only her. Min Jae's lips parted, his head dipped lower, his breath brushing against her cheek. His lips hovering dangerously close. Amara's heart thundered, but she held her ground, watching him, reading the hunger in his eyes. He was so close. One more breath, and his mouth would claim hers. But just as his lips brushed the edge of hers, Amara shifted back. A smirk tugged at her lips, sharp and teasing. "That," she whispered, her voice like silk, "will never happen." Min Jae froze. For the first time in years, the unshakable, untouchable crime boss stood stunned, his chest heavy, his pride cut like glass. His jaw flexed, his hands slowly dropped from her waist, his eyes narrowing, his ego burning with silent rage. He wasn't used to this. Women threw themselves at him, begged for him, dreamed of his touch. But Amara had just denied him. His voice was low, rough, dangerous. "You think you can play with me?" Amara tilted her head, her smirk never fading. "I'm not one of your toys, Min Jae. You don't get everything you want." Her words cut deeper than she knew, because Min Jae wasn't just angry. He was intrigued, addicted, consumed. The fire in his chest wasn't just desire, it was obsession, and now, more than ever, he needed her. But Amara was proving to be the one woman he couldn't have. The ride back from the lounge was silent. Min Jae's men laughed in the other car, but inside his, the tension was sharp enough to cut. Amara sat by the window, her smirk still lingering, her body relaxed as if she hadn't just wounded the most feared man in Seoul. Min Jae's hand rested against his jaw, his eyes fixed on her reflection in the glass. The echo of her words, "That will never happen," gnawed at him louder than the music they'd left behind. When they returned to the mansion, he dismissed his men with a single wave. Only Amara remained, walking ahead of him, her steps light, unafraid. Min Jae's voice broke the silence, low, dangerous. "You think you won tonight, don't you?" Amara turned, raising an eyebrow. "Won? This isn't a game." A slow, sharp smile curved his lips. He closed the distance between them, his presence suffocating, his gaze burning. "Oh, Amara, it's exactly a game, and I never lose." The following days were a storm of tension. Min Jae didn't lock her away. Instead, he pulled her closer into his world. Every morning, she was dragged into the training room. He stood behind her as she practiced with guns, correcting her stance with touches that lingered too long. At night, he sat with her at the dining table, watching her across candlelight, never speaking much. But his eyes said everything he refused to admit. And still, Amara resisted. She laughed when he was stern. She smirked when he tried to intimidate her. She met his icy glares with fire. Min Jae's frustration grew, but so did his hunger. One evening, he cornered her in the hallway, his arm pressing against the wall beside her, trapping her. "You think you're strong because you said no," he murmured, his voice a dark caress. "But strength doesn't mean resisting me. Strength is realizing you can't." Amara's chest rose and fell, her pulse racing. His nearness was intoxicating, overwhelming, but she refused to look away. "Maybe," she whispered, her smirk returning, "you're the one who can't resist me." His breath caught. For a moment, the mighty Min Jae had no words. Her defiance was maddening and irresistible. He leaned closer, his lips inches from hers, his voice a promise wrapped in fire. "Don't worry, Amara. I'll make you beg. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. You'll surrender." Her heart thundered, but she forced a laugh. "We'll see." For days, Min Jae carried out his silent war. Lavish gifts arrived at Amara's room. Diamond necklaces, silk dresses, shoes worth more than the debt she was carrying. He never asked if she liked them. He commanded her to wear them, and she did, but not the way he expected. At dinner, she appeared in the blood-red gown he sent, her curves outlined like fire. Every man in the room paused. Even Min Jae's hardened lieutenants couldn't help but stare. Min Jae's jaw clenched, his glass cracked beneath his grip. Amara smiled sweetly at him across the table. "You said I should wear it. Don't you like the effect?" He didn't answer. His eyes blazed, his control fraying. The game escalated. During training, when he corrected her stance, she let her hand brush against his chest, lingering just a second too long. When he handed her a weapon, her fingers curled around his deliberately, her touch soft, teasing, and when his men gathered to discuss business, she strolled in with a tray of drinks, bending just enough to make their eyes follow her. Min-jae dismissed them all in rage. That night, he stormed into her room, his voice low, dangerous. "You're playing with fire, Amara." She sat on the edge of the bed, crossing her legs slowly, her smirk sharp. "Funny, I thought you were the one playing games." Min-jae stepped closer, towering over her, but her gaze didn't falter. "You're trying to control me," she whispered, leaning forward so close he felt her breath. "But what if I'm the one in control?" His chest tightened. No one dared challenge him like this. No one ever looked him in the eye and dared to push back. Min-jae's hand gripped the bedpost beside her head, his lips a hair's breadth from hers. "You think you can beat me at my own game?" Amara tilted her chin, her smirk turning dangerous. "I already am." For once, Amara didn't smirk. She didn't tease. She only stared at him at the sharp jaw, the dark, dangerous eyes, the lips she had sworn she'd never touch. Something inside her broke. Min-jae straightened, his chest rising as if preparing for war. But when she stopped in front of him, close enough to feel his warmth, her body betrayed her. She kissed him, soft at first. A mistake, she told herself. But Min-jae froze, his breath shuddering. He pulled back an inch, his eyes wide, questioning. But then, as if the dam inside him shattered, he gripped her waist and dragged her back to him. The kiss deepened, fierce, consuming, a war of lips and tongues, of pride and surrender. Amara melted against him, her fingers curling into his shirt while his hands roamed her body with hunger he could no longer cage. The bed was their battlefield. Clothes fell, walls crumbled. The untouchable Min-jae was undone, and Amara was lost in the fire she had tried to resist. Hours later, Min-jae lay awake beside her, the world finally quiet. He watched her chest rise and fall in sleep, the softness of her face unguarded. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. Not of enemies, not of death, but of how much he needed her. When Amara stirred awake, her eyes met his. Vulnerability flashed across his face, something no one else had ever seen. "I don't want to play games anymore," he whispered, his hand brushing her cheek. "Be my woman." The words hung heavy between them. Amara's heart stuttered. She wanted to fall into him, but instead she sat up, her expression hardening. "No, Min-jae." His chest tightened, his throat burning. "Why?" She stood, gathering her clothes, refusing to meet his eyes. "Because men like you don't love, they possess, and I will never let myself be owned, as if kidnapping me isn't enough." The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Min-jae alone in the dark. For the first time, the man who controlled everything realized there was one thing slipping through his fingers, and he couldn't bear it. The night was drenched in violence. Gunfire cracked like thunder, echoing through the abandoned warehouse where Min-jae and his men stormed their rivals. Before stepping out, Min-jae had gripped Amara's chin with cold intensity. "Stay in the car. Don't move, no matter what you hear." Amara nodded. But as the minutes dragged on, the muffled blasts grew louder, her heart raced, each scream and gunshot stabbing through her chest. Her body moved before her mind caught up. She pushed open the car door, ignoring her own fear, and ran toward the chaos. Inside, Min-jae was a beast unleashed, gun in one hand, knife in the other, his men at his side. Bodies fell with each strike, but his eyes burned with calculation, with rage, with dominance, until he saw her. Amara standing at the entrance, eyes wide, breath trembling, staring at the blood-stained battlefield. His chest seized. "What the hell are you doing here?" he roared, his voice cutting through the gunfire. But it was too late. His rival, smirking through bloodied lips, spotted her instantly. "So it's true," the man sneered. "The great Min-jae has a weakness." The traitor in Min-jae's crew had been right. Word had spread, and now the enemy raised his gun, not at Min-jae, but at Amara. Time slowed. The trigger pulled. Amara's scream tore the air, but before the bullet could reach her, Min-jae lunged. The impact ripped through his body. A burning pain exploded in his chest. He fell to the ground, blood seeping between his fingers. Amara collapsed beside him, clutching him desperately. No, Min-jae. No. Min-jae's men retaliated with fury, reinforcements storming in. The battle turned, his enemies cut down in minutes, but Amara saw none of it. Her hands trembled as she pressed against his wound, her tears mixing with the blood on her fingers. Why? Why would you do this? She whispered, broken. Min-jae's eyes, dim but burning with stubborn fire, locked on hers. Because you're mine, he gasped, each word dragging out of his chest, and I will never let anyone take you from me. His head fell back, his breath shallow as his men rushed to carry him out. Amara clung to his hand, her heart shattered. For the first time, she realized the truth she had been running from. She wasn't the one playing the game anymore. Min-jae had already stolen her heart. The hospital corridor reeked of antiseptic, but for Amara, all she could smell was blood, his blood. She sat, hunched in the waiting room, her hands shaking, her clothes stained from the night. Tears streamed down her face unchecked. Her mind replayed it over and over. The gun raised, the trigger pulled, Min-jae's body crashing against hers as the bullet tore through him. This is my fault, she whispered, pressing her palms against her face. If I had just stayed in the car like he told me, he wouldn't. Her words broke into sobs. Hours passed, like days. Finally, the doctor emerged. He's alive. We managed to remove the bullet. He'll recover. Her knees buckled with relief. When Min-jae finally opened his eyes days later, Amara was there, her hand clutching his, as if it was the only thing keeping her alive. He tried to sit up, but she pressed him gently down, tears glistening in her eyes. Don't move, please. You almost died because of me. Min-jae studied her face. No teasing, no smirk, just raw emotion. He reached up, brushing her cheek weakly with his hand. Don't say that. I'd do it again 1,000 times if it meant you'd live. Her heart broke all over again. She leaned closer, whispering through tears. Why, Min-jae? Why would you risk your life for me? He gave a faint smile, the kind she'd never seen before. Because Amara, somewhere between hating you and wanting to control you, I fell in love with you. I fought it, I denied it. But the truth is, I can't